Welcome to the Heartbreak Chronicles, where every story is a raw reflection of life. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned, give us a like to show your support, and share this episode with your friends. Don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you think. Now, let's dive into today's story. On a Thursday morning, music producer Henry Walker walks into the office of private investigator Jack Michaels. Jack's expression was serious, and Henry immediately realized something was wrong. "I'm sorry, Mr. Walker, that I have to bring you such bad news," Jack said, handing Henry a thick envelope. Henry took a deep breath and opened the envelope. Inside is a detailed investigative report documenting inappropriate behavior between his wife Olivia and her former boss, famed musician Nathan Cooper. In addition to the report, the envelope contained a stack of photographs and a DVD. Henry had a quick look at the photos, but hadn't had the courage to watch the DVD yet. Despite his inner resistance, he realized that he had to face what Jack had discovered. "Can you tell me how long this has been going on?" Henry asked with difficulty. Jack looked over his preliminary report, then replied, "According to the evidence we have, it's been going on for at least 10 years, likely as long as 12 years. It looks like it started when Olivia was about to be promoted to a top position, about a year after your daughter Sophie was born." Henry felt a wave of vertigo. 12 years? Almost their entire marriage. Suddenly, a terrible thought flashed through his mind. "I need a paternity test," he muttered. However, he was more concerned about his health. Nathan had a reputation in the music industry for being a womanizer. "Considering how close Olivia and I have been over the years, shouldn't I get a full physical?" Jack nodded. "That's a wise decision, Mr. Walker. According to our investigation, Mr. Cooper did have intimate contact with a number of married women." Henry smiled bitterly and continued to skim the report. He noted that Jack had mentioned in his report that Olivia didn't seem to realize that Nathan was having affairs with other women in her absence. "By the way, Mr. Walker," Jack added, "Nathan said he never meant to break up your marriage. Besides, they've never done anything improper in your house." Henry sneered. How thoughtful. He thought back to his several meetings with Nathan, a man who always wore an unpleasantly arrogant expression. Now he finally understood the meaning behind that expression. "One more thing, Mr. Walker," Jack continued. "Based on our observations and recordings, Nathan's sister Emily knew about their affair from the beginning. It looks like she may have even played a part in pushing it." The news sent a wave of heartache through Henry. He'd always thought of Emily as a decent person, very different from her arrogant brother. Now it seems that they were all involved in this deception against him. "Have you contacted a lawyer?" Jack asked. Henry shook his head. "Not yet. I want to get the facts first." "I work with Amy Hawkins a lot," Jack suggested, "and she's very good at handling these kinds of cases. If you'd like, I can send her this information and tell her you'll go to her." "That's great, thanks," Henry said gratefully. Jack handed him a business card, which Henry carefully slipped into his pocket. "Can I give you some advice?" Jack asked. Henry nodded. "Let Amy handle this. I know you're in a lot of pain right now, and you might want to let it out. But don't do it. It's not worth getting yourself into trouble. This isn't some online story. This is real life, and you have 2 kids to think about," Jack said sincerely. Henry sighed deeply. "I understand. Thank you, Jack." After settling the bill, Henry left Jack's office. He feels like his entire marriage has been a sham. Even though he knew that Jack was right, the pain in his heart was still too much to be calmed. Henry sat in the car and cried for almost 15 minutes. When he calmed down, he took out the business card Jack had given him, dialed Amy Hawkins' law office, and made an appointment for the next day. Amy gave him a list of documents to prepare, mainly some financial statements. On his way home, Henry stops at a convenience store and buys a pack of cigarettes, the first time he's done so since college. Then he went into a bar and tried to numb his pain with alcohol. "You all right, bro?" the bartender asked, watching Henry light a cigarette. Henry looked up at the bartender and replied with a bitter smile, "Can you tell?" "Unfortunately, yes." The bartender smiles and says, "Let me guess, just found out your wife cheated on you?" "That's right," Henry nodded. "And it's been going on for 12 years? Can you believe it?" "Believe it or not, I understand." The bartender replied, "I've seen and heard everything since I've been working here." "No doubt," Henry agreed. The bartender gave a soft chuckle. Can I share with you something my grandfather used to say? Go ahead, Henry encouraged. He'll say, I was sad because I had no shoes until I met a man with no feet. The bartender shared, I know you're hurting right now. I've been there. But things will get better, and believe me, there are people out there who have had it worse than you. Your grandfather sounds like a very wise man, Henry commented. He sure is. The bartender affirmed, finish your drink and go home, kid. Take care of your business and do what needs to be done. You won't find any answers in this drink, believe me. Henry smiled and nodded in agreement. Deep down, he knew the experienced bartender was telling the truth. Henry sipped his beer, recalling the subtle signs of the past few years. Each individual sign wasn't enough to tell the story, but when he connected them, it all became clear. For example, after the birth of their second child, Sophie, Henry had a sterilization operation. But Olivia went back on the pill, which made him wonder. When he asks, Olivia gives an explanation about regulating menstruation. Henry, not being an expert on the subject, took her word for it. Then, when Olivia gets that new job at the music company and starts traveling with Nathan on a regular basis, Henry notices that she's becoming less well-dressed. Olivia explains that it's part of her new job to attend social functions. Now that I think about it, she was indeed entertaining Nathan, which seemed to be an important part of her new job. Henry often calls Olivia when she's traveling. He found it odd that Olivia was always in her room whenever he talked, but sometimes he seemed to hear a man's voice nearby. Sometimes, Olivia's voice would suddenly change pitch when she spoke, which Henry couldn't explain at the time. But it made sense if Nathan was touching Olivia on the other end of the phone. On a couple of occasions, Henry smelled the faint scent of Nathan's usual cologne on Olivia's clothes when she came home. He recognized the smell because he could smell it every time he saw Nathan, and it made him sick. Henry could only imagine that the only way this could have happened was if Olivia had been intimate with Nathan. Then there's what Olivia calls her retirement Friday afternoon job. They said they still needed my special skills, so they kept me one afternoon a week. But sometimes it may require traveling. That's how Olivia explained it when Henry asked. It's just work, she added. Now Henry realized that her special skills involved more intimate activities that went beyond work. To make matters worse, her one afternoon a week job turned into 2 or 3 afternoons, and she often didn't get home until 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. Her occasional business trips have increased from once a month to 2 or 3 times a month, and she is often away from home for entire weekends. Where does this look like retirement? All of these changes have occurred in the last 4 months. However, to Henry's bewilderment, Olivia's attitude towards him has not changed at all. She is still as kind and considerate as she was when they were first married. She seemed to be enjoying her time at home with the kids, which was a bit of a relief to Henry, who had taken on most of the childcare responsibilities due to Olivia's busy schedule. Henry has been wrestling with this question for a while, so he finally decides to hire Jack's investigative firm to find out what Olivia is really up to. Now, his worst suspicions were confirmed. The remaining question is how to divide the property. If it had been an impulsive mistake, Henry might have been able to forgive and move on with his life. Sure, he'll be angry, but that won't be a reason to end the marriage. However, this has been a decade-long systematic betrayal, and it is time for some to be held accountable. Henry puts out his cigarette, takes the last sip of his beer, and gets up to leave. He nodded to the bartender and gave a generous tip for listening and advising him. When Henry gets home, he notices Olivia's car parked in the garage. To be honest, he was a little surprised to see her at home. Henry closes the garage door, walks inside, takes off his coat, and prepares to walk to his study. Olivia stopped him halfway across the street and immediately smelled cigarettes and beer. Have you been smoking? She frowned and said, I also smell beer. Is everything all right, Henry? Honestly, it's not good. Henry replied, Today is one of the worst days of my life. What happened? Did something terrible happen? Olivia asked, looking genuinely concerned. Henry thought to himself, yeah, something happened. But he didn't say it out loud. He just replied, I'm going to stay in the study tonight. I'm in a bad mood, so I'm probably not good company. Honey, is there anything I can do to help? Olivia asked. Henry laughed inwardly. Yeah, Can you make the last 12 years over again? But he just said, I'm afraid there's not much you can do. By the way, Henry, Olivia snapped, I'm traveling again this weekend, starting Friday. It's only Tuesday, and she's already telling him she'll be gone all weekend again. Henry felt a surge of anger well up in him. Again? Didn't you just go on a weekend trip? Henry questioned. Yeah, but then something came up. Olivia explained, it's just work. I see. Henry replied sarcastically. Suddenly, he remembered something. What about Sophie's birthday party? It's this Saturday. I know, Olivia admitted. But there's really no way I can avoid this business trip. Can you help me explain to her why I can't attend? I'm not covering for you anymore. Henry said firmly, You missed Erin's birthday and our anniversary last year. This time you'll explain to our daughter yourself why you'd rather travel with Nathan than attend her birthday party. Olivia was visibly upset by Henry's response. She sighed heavily before speaking. Henry, please, you're being unreasonable. No, Olivia, Henry insisted. Didn't you say a couple months ago that you were retiring when the company was sold? But you've been traveling so much lately that I have to wonder what the hell is going on. Is there anything you want to tell me? What do you mean by that? Are you accusing me of having an affair? Olivia retorted, her tone defensive. How would you feel if the roles were reversed? Henry asked rhetorically. Olivia's attitude seemed to soften a bit after hearing that. I get what you're saying, she admitted, but trust me, it's really just work. You keep saying that. Henry responded, Now, if you'll excuse me, I have things to do. You'll have to take care of the kids tonight. With that, Henry retired to his study, closing and locking the door. He hears Olivia trying to open the door. Henry, she called through the door. Please, Henry, talk to me. Stay away from me, Olivia, Henry said through gritted teeth. I'm busy. He heard Olivia's footsteps fading away. Henry begins to gather the documents Amy has requested and then turns to the evidence Jack has provided. As he read the report, it was hard to believe that this was the woman he had loved and supported for 12 years. Henry puts on his headphones and starts the DVD. Unless you've experienced it yourself, you can't understand the complex emotions you feel when you see someone you love so much willingly give themselves to someone else. Henry doesn't care how Jack got the videos. He just knows that any love he had for Olivia is gone. As he watched the image of Olivia and Nathan together on the screen, he swore to himself that he would never touch her again. He heard their conversation. Are we still seeing each other this weekend? Nathan asked, wrapping his arms around Olivia. Of course, Olivia replied with a smile. You know I can't go long without you. Isn't your daughter's birthday party this weekend? Nathan inquired. Yes, but Henry will take care of it, she said. He's better at dealing with kids than I am. Besides, if I had to choose between being in the middle of a bunch of loud little girls or being with you, I'd rather be with you. You know I love having you here, Olivia, but I'm worried he might start to get suspicious, Nathan stated. Remember, you're supposed to be retired now? I told you, Nathan, Olivia replied, stroking him. I'm not giving up on our relationship, retired or not. I love my family and Henry, but everything we've shared these past 12 years means everything to me. I'm glad to hear that, Nathan responded. Remember when we started this relationship and you said that if you had to choose, you would choose Henry and the kids. Do you still think so? Honestly, I don't know, Olivia admitted. It's never happened before. I don't know how you've been keeping it from him, Nathan exclaimed. If he finds out, things are going to get really bad. It wasn't easy at first, for sure, but I learned how to separate my work life from my private life, Olivia explains. I never refused him anything and I was very good to him. If he finds out, I'll threaten to hold it against him in the divorce. It might not be that simple, Nathan warned. But if things get really fucked up, you can move in with me. I like having you around. Thank you, Nathan, Olivia said. I appreciate it. But I don't think anything will happen. He didn't find out for 12 years, and I don't think he ever will. How long are you going to keep this up? Nathan asked. As long as I can go on, maybe for the rest of my life, Olivia declared. Henry thought to himself, maybe you'll get what you want. He turned off the video and put the DVD back in his briefcase when he heard Olivia knock on the door. What's wrong? He responded. The kids are going to bed, Olivia told him. Can you at least come out and say goodnight to them? Okay, coming right up, Henry replied. He shut down his computer and went upstairs to tuck the kids in, trying to smile. Sophie gave him a strange look. Daddy, are you okay? She asked. It's okay, baby, Henry assured as he tried to smile. Sleep, I love you. I love you too, Sophie said, giving him a kiss. After leaving her room, Henry went downstairs to pour a cup of coffee. I saved you some food, Henry, Olivia reminded. I'm not hungry, Henry replied, walking out to the backyard, sitting in a chair on the patio and lighting a cigarette. A few minutes later, Olivia came onto the terrace as well. She tried to kiss Henry, but he turned his head so that she could only kiss his cheek. He couldn't accept the lips that had kissed Nathan. Olivia looked surprised. Tell me what you're thinking, Henry, please. You look really troubled. It's not like you. And you know I don't like you smoking. Didn't you quit in college? Yeah, well, life doesn't always turn out the way we want it to, does it? Henry replied sarcastically. What do you mean by that? Olivia trailed off. Henry just shakes his head and stays silent. Henry, please tell me. I love you, and you can tell me anything. Henry glanced at her through the smoke and shook his head again. It's too late for anything now. What's too late? I don't understand, Olivia pressed. You're pretty clued up in the music business, Henry said, as you should be able to guess. Henry, please let me help, Olivia pleaded. Maybe I can help if you'll just let me know. Olivia, please respect my privacy, Henry said, frustration in his tone. I need some time to organize my thoughts. Realizing he may have said too much, Henry moderated his tone. I'm sorry I lost my temper. Work has been exhausting and stressful lately. Maybe in a couple days. Henry felt it was wrong to lie to her, but then he thought, why not? What's wrong with lying to a liar? Okay, Olivia replied softly, tears running down her cheeks. Then she hurried into the house, sobbing. Henry smoked 2 more cigarettes before returning to the house. He took a shower to rinse off the smell of smoke, put on the pajamas he rarely wore, and got under the covers. Olivia lies on the other side of the bed and reaches under the covers to touch him. Henry pushes her hand away and rejects her intimacy, for the first time in their marriage. Henry, Olivia spoke up. Henry turned away, refusing to give her a good-night kiss. Good night, Olivia, he cooed. She turned away to cry, but at the moment Henry didn't care. As far as he's concerned, she can go to hell. The next morning, Henry gets up, showers, dresses, and packs for work. He spent some time with the kids until they left for school. Then he leaves the house, ignoring Olivia. She gave him a strange look as he walked toward the door. Am I not even going to get a goodbye kiss today? She asked as Henry was about to open the door. Sorry, Henry replied, flying a kiss at her. I love you, she said. Well, me too, Henry grunted as he walked out the door. At the office, Henry tries to focus on his work, but it's not easy. He briefly explained the situation to his boss, who expressed understanding because he had gone through a divorce himself. Do what you need to do, he said, and if you need time off, just let me know. Henry thanked him and went back to work, leaving early to meet Amy. Arriving at Amy Hawkins' law office, Henry felt a surge of nervousness. Amy greeted him warmly, gesturing for him to take a seat in the chair at her table. Good afternoon, Mr. Walker, Amy greeted. I've read the report Jack sent. First, let me say I'm sorry you're going through this. This situation is always heartbreaking. Are you okay? Henry took a deep breath. Honestly, I'm bad. But I need to stay calm and prepare for what's next. Amy nodded. That's the right attitude. Now, let's talk about your expectations for this divorce. Do you have any specific goals in mind? I want as much as I can get, Henry said firmly, especially custody of the kids, if they are really mine. Amy nodded thoughtfully. Regarding custody, you should know that courts usually tend to award children to their mothers. But considering the circumstances you mentioned, we may have some advantages. I've been the primary caregiver for the last 10 years, Henry explains, and in the video, Olivia admits that I'm better at taking care of the kids than she is. The fact that she chose to spend time with her lover instead of attending her daughter's birthday should speak volumes. Those are really factors in our favor, Amy agreed. And we can use that information in court. Next, they discussed the division of property. Amy reviews the financial documents provided by Henry and discovers that Olivia made a sizable income from the sale of the company. "It looks like your wife got a big chunk of money from the sale of the company," Amy said, "and she receives a monthly dividend that's about the same as your paycheck. It's in our favor. Does that mean no alimony?" Henry asked. "Or very little," Amy confirmed. "She's young and capable of working. And if we can get custody for you, we might even be able to get child support from her." They went on to discuss the division of real estate, retirement accounts, and bank accounts. Amy's proposal to exclude retirement accounts and divide other assets equally is consistent with the usual court decisions. "What about Nathan Cooper?" Henry asked, anger in his voice. "Can I sue him for breaking up my marriage?" Amy shook her head. "It's very difficult to succeed in a lawsuit like that in this state. But we will mention his behavior in the divorce proceedings. We could also consider suing him for intentional infliction of emotional distress, although it's unlikely to be successful." "What about Emily, Nathan's sister?" Henry trailed off. "She knew about this from the beginning and may have even helped them." "The situation is pretty much the same as Nathan," Amy replied. "If you insist, we can file a lawsuit, but be prepared for what could be a tough legal battle." They discussed litigation strategy and scheduling. Amy promised to have all the documents ready by Friday and to arrange for delivery on Saturday afternoon as requested by Henry. As he left Amy's office, Henry felt both relieved and nervous. He knew the next few days were going to be tough, but at least he now had a clear plan. When he gets home, Henry decides to talk to Olivia's parents first. He dialed George's number and asked them to meet the next day. The next afternoon, Henry meets George and Rhonda in a quiet cafe. Henry felt a pang of guilt when he saw their concerned faces, but he knew he had to tell them the truth. "What's wrong, son?" George asked. "You look troubled." Henry took a deep breath and then began to tell what he had found. Shock and disbelief were written all over George and Rhonda's faces when he spoke of Olivia's long affair with Nathan. "No way," Rhonda murmured. "How could Olivia do such a thing?" "I can't believe it either," Henry said bitterly. "But I have hard evidence. Private investigator reports, photos, even videos." George's expression shifted from shock to anger. "That bastard Nathan. I've always thought he was no good." He clenched his fists. "I'm going to make him pay." "George, calm down," Rhonda said as she grabbed her husband's hand and then turned to Henry. "What are you going to do?" "I've contacted an attorney," Henry said, "and I'll be filing for divorce. I want custody of the kids." George nodded. "We've got your back, son. Anything you need us to do, just ask." Henry looked at them gratefully. "Thank you. Right now, I'm most worried about the kids. I don't know how to tell them." "We'll help you," Rhonda said gently. "We'll figure it out together." As he left the cafe, Henry felt a twinge of comfort. At least he's not alone in all this. Over the next few days, Henry worked hard to keep the surface calm while preparing for the coming storm. He prepares Sophie's birthday party, despite the conflicting emotions inside. Saturday morning, Henry woke up and started setting up the backyard for Sophie's birthday party. Despite the heaviness in his heart, he did his best to make everything seem joyful and normal. Around noon, Olivia's parents, George and Rhonda, arrived with the kids. Henry had been busy with the party all morning, which made him forget his inner pain for a while. "You did a really good job," Rhonda commented as she walked into the backyard. "Sophie's going to love it." Henry forced a smile. "I hope so. I tried my best." George patted Henry on the shoulder and whispered, "Be strong, son. We'll get you through this." Henry nodded gratefully. Just then, the doorbell rang. The first guests arrive and Henry takes a deep breath, preparing for the challenge that is to come. After Sophie's birthday party, Henry felt exhausted. He thanked everyone for coming and looked at the mess all over the house, knowing the cleanup would keep him busy for a while. Just then Sophie came up to me with tears in her eyes. "What's wrong, baby?" Henry asked, taking his daughter into his arms. "I just wish Mommy was here," Sophie sobbed. "I miss her so much." Henry sighed. "Yeah, me too. But she has other arrangements." Sophie's expression turned somber. "Are you and Mom splitting up?" Henry looked at his daughter in surprise, not expecting her to ask the question so directly. Just as he was debating how to respond, Aaron interjected. "Is it because of that Uncle Nathan?" Henry frowned at his son. What makes you think that? Aaron shrugged. I hear my mom talking to him on the phone all the time. The way she talks. Like she talks to you. Henry felt a pang of heartache, not realizing that even the children had noticed the anomaly. He decided to avoid the topic for now. We'll talk about this tomorrow, okay? It's Sophie's birthday, and we should focus on celebrating. Now, will you guys help me clean up? The kids nodded and began to help clean up. Henry absent-mindedly tidied up, his mind racing on how to explain the upcoming changes to the kids. The next night, George suggested that they go to a ball game together and have some beers. Henry readily agreed, thinking it might be a good distraction. They went downtown to the Flat Stick Pub, a popular sports bar. While enjoying burgers and beer, they watched the game on TV. George briefed Henry in the gap. Olivia arrived yesterday morning around 9 o'clock. George said it was tense at first, but then eased up a bit. The kids didn't treat her very well, and they made that obvious. Henry nodded. Kids are a lot sharper than we think. Amazingly, George continued, Olivia confessed everything. Henry raised an eyebrow. What a surprise. She claims she still loves you, George said, and I think she might want to make up. Henry shook his head. After 12 years of deceit and betrayal, that's not going to happen. Just then, Henry felt a heavy blow to the back of his head, and gold stars popped up in front of his eyes. He fell to the ground and vaguely saw a foot coming at him. Despite the dizziness, Henry instinctively ducked. I'm going to teach you a lesson, asshole. Nathan's voice rang out full of rage. Henry recalled the self-defense techniques his father had taught him and focused his entire body and kicked Nathan hard in the crotch. Nathan screamed in pain and stumbled back, hitting a nearby table. Henry seized the opportunity to pounce on Nathan, all the anger that had built up over the years exploding at the moment. He didn't have any technique to speak of at all. He just kept throwing punches out of pure rage. Henry, unaware that Nathan is unconscious, continues to vent his anger until George and another man pull him away. When Henry regained consciousness, he found himself in a hospital bed with a doctor examining him. His right hand was bandaged, his left arm was in a cast, and a 4-tube was attached to his arm. He had a terrible headache. I think he'll be fine, the doctor said to the man next to him. He'll have a headache for a while, but no sign of a concussion. We'll give him some painkillers, let him rest, and then he can go home. Thanks, Doc, Henry heard George's voice. After the doctor left, George grinned at Henry. Hear that? You're going to be fine. I know you're in a lot of pain right now, but you should have seen that guy. It is said that he may have lost a testicle, as well as a couple of teeth, and almost lost his eyesight. Looks like you broke a knuckle on his jaw. Henry tried to remember what had happened. That was Nathan, wasn't it? That's right, George confirmed with a nod. How long have I been here? Henry asked, feeling a little disoriented. Between last night and now, George replied, it's 8:30 a.m. Sunday morning. By the way, there are 2 tall cops outside who want to talk to you. Are you ready? Henry sighed. Well, let them in. George signaled the police to enter the ward. Mr. Walker, I'm Officer Smith and this is Officer Jones. One of the officers introduced himself. We are the officers in charge of last night's incident at the Flat Stick Pub. How are you feeling this morning? Henry laughed bitterly. It feels like I've been hit hard. Officer Smith nodded and checked his notes. Can you tell us what happened last night? Henry described the incident in as much detail as he could. I was just having a burger and a beer with my father-in-law when all of a sudden I was attacked from behind. The man threatened me, so I had to defend myself. Officer Smith nodded. That basically matches the eyewitness statements and the security footage. Do you recognize your attacker? Yes, Henry replied. His name is Nathan Cooper. I'm suing him, and he's part of my divorce case. Divorce? The officer asked. Yes, Henry confirmed. Understood. Smith jotted the information down on his notepad. So, would you like to press charges against him? Of course, Henry said firmly. And I have a restraining order against him. Okay, we'll look into this, Smith said. And it's best to stay out of the city for now until we need to talk to you again. Henry nodded in understanding. No problem, officer. After the police left, George and Rhonda came in with the kids. Sophie looks like she's about to cry. "Daddy, are you okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. Henry tried his best to smile. "I'll be fine, honey." "I heard you gave Uncle Nathan a hard time," Aaron interjected, a small smirk on his face. Henry glanced at George, who shrugged. "Yes," Henry admitted, "but it's nothing to be proud of. Do you understand me?" "Got it, Dad," Aaron nodded. Just then, Olivia walks in. Henry felt a pang of discomfort. "Why are you here?" he asked, glaring at Olivia. "The restraining order doesn't go into effect until noon," Olivia explained. "And I wanted to come see you before then." Henry nodded, not knowing what to say. "Can I talk to the kids alone?" Olivia asked. The kids gave Henry a look, and he nodded in agreement. Sophie and Aaron followed Olivia out of the hospital room. "Are you okay, Henry?" asked Olivia, concern in her voice. "He'll be fine," Sophie said firmly. "We'll take care of Dad, won't we, Aaron?" "Of course," Aaron agreed. Olivia looked at the two children as if she wanted to say something, but finally just nodded. "If you guys need anything, feel free to let me know, okay?" "We will," Sophie said, a hint of coldness in her tone. Olivia sighed. "I know you guys are probably mad at me right now, but I want you to understand." "Understand what?" Aaron interrupted. "Understand why you hurt Dad?" Olivia looked shocked by the direct question. "It's more complicated than you think." "No, Mom," Sophie said. "It's not complicated at all. You betrayed Dad. You betrayed all of us." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. I really am. I never meant to hurt any of you." "But you did it anyway," Aaron said coldly. Olivia looks at her children and realizes that she may have lost their trust and respect. She wiped her eyes. "I understand. I'll give you guys some time. If you're ready, we can talk again." The children nodded and watched Olivia leave. Then they went back to Henry's hospital room and hugged him tightly. Henry felt the children's hugs and was filled with mixed emotions. He knew that despite the difficulties ahead of him, he had the courage to face everything as long as he had his children by his side. After examining Henry's injuries, the doctor decided to keep him under observation for another night. Although Henry insists on going home, George and Rhonda convince him to stay. "You need to rest, son," George insisted. "We'll take care of the kids." Henry reluctantly agrees. When night fell and he was the only one left in the hospital room, the emotions that had built up over the days finally erupted. He wept silently, grieving for all he had lost. The next morning, just as Henry is about to be discharged, Olivia appears at the door of the hospital room. She looked haggard. Her eyes were red and swollen, and she had obviously been up all night. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. Henry took a deep breath and nodded. He knew this conversation was coming sooner or later, but that didn't mean he was ready for it. Olivia walks into the room and sits down in the chair next to the bed. Silence spread between the two until Henry finally spoke. "Why, Olivia?" There was pain in his voice. "Is our marriage so worthless to you?" Olivia lowered her head as tears began to gather in her eyes. "I never meant to hurt you, Henry. At first, it was just to keep my job. Nathan, he made having sex with him a condition of me getting that top job." Henry felt a wave of nausea. "So you'd rather betray yourself than tell me? We could have faced this together, Olivia. We could have sued him for sexual harassment." "I know," Olivia sobbed. "I was so scared. I'm afraid of losing my job and ruining my career. I thought I could control the situation, but things gradually got out of hand." 12 years, Olivia," Henry said coldly. "That's far beyond out of control. You're in love with him, aren't you?" Olivia was silent for a moment, then admitted softly, "Yes, I think I'm in love with him. But Henry, I never stopped loving you. I thought I could do both." Henry shook his head, feeling a pang of deep disappointment and betrayal. "How could you be so selfish? Have you ever thought about the effect this will have on the children? The effect on our family?" "I feel guilty about it every day," Olivia said. "And I know I made a terrible mistake. But I hope you can forgive me, Henry. Can we start over?" Henry looks at the woman he once loved and feels a pang of sadness. "Forgive you, Olivia. You betrayed our marriage vows. You lied to me for 12 whole years. You chose Nathan over your family. Now you expect us to start over?" I know I'm asking too much, Olivia choked out, but we've spent so many years together. Are all these years of affection so worthless? Henry was silent for a moment, thinking back to their years together. Then he said calmly, "Those years meant a lot to me, Olivia, but now I don't know how much of it is true. You're in the music business. You should understand that once you lose trust, the band can't keep playing." Olivia lowered her head as tears slid down her cheeks. "I understand. So, what happens next?" Henry sighed. "I've contacted a lawyer. I'll file for divorce, Olivia. I want custody of the kids." Olivia jerked her head up. "No, Henry, please. Don't take away the children. I know I hurt you, but please don't punish me with the children." "It's not a punishment, Olivia," Henry said calmly. "It's for the children's sake. What do you think they will think of you after learning the truth? Do you think they'll want to live with a mother who betrayed their father and chose her lover over her family?" Olivia looks like she's been hit by Henry's words. She opened her mouth to say something, but in the end just closed her eyes feebly. "I'll talk to my lawyer about visitation rights," Henry added. "And I won't stop you from seeing the kids. But Olivia, you need to realize that your actions don't just hurt me, they hurt them. You need to take responsibility for that." Olivia nods, looking like she's suddenly aged 10 years. "I see. I'll contact my lawyer. I'm sorry, Henry. I'm really sorry." She stood up and headed for the door. Before she left, she looked back at Henry one last time. "Believe it or not, I do love you. I'm just lost myself." Henry watched her leave and felt a wave of exhaustion hit him. He knew that this was just the beginning of a long and difficult divorce process. But he also knew that he had to be strong for himself and for his children. Henry struggles to smile when George and Rhonda come to pick him up from the hospital with the kids. Despite the challenging road ahead, he has the support of his family and is confident that he will be able to get through this difficult time. As he left the hospital, Henry felt a strange sense of relief. Though his body still ached, his mind seemed to relax a bit. He knew that the truth had finally come out, and now he could begin to rebuild his life. In the weeks following his departure from the hospital, a strange calm fell over Henry's life. He focuses on taking care of the kids and dealing with work, trying not to think about the upcoming legal proceedings. Amy Hawkins, his attorney, had been preparing for the divorce and kept him regularly informed of progress. One night, just after Henry had put the kids to bed, he got a call from George. "Henry," George's voice sounded tense. "Something's wrong." "It's Olivia." Henry felt a wave of panic. "What's wrong? Is she okay?" George took a deep breath. Natalie found out that she had overdosed on sleeping pills at Nathan's house and had been drinking. "She's in the hospital now. The doctor says she'll be fine." But Henry felt a wave of vertigo. As much as Olivia hurt him, he never wanted that to happen to her. "Do the kids know?" he asked. "Don't know yet," George replied. "We thought we should tell you first." Henry rubbed his temples. "Thank you, George. I'll go to the hospital. Can you come and look after the children?" "Sure," George agreed immediately. "Rhonda and I will be right over." Henry arrived at the hospital to find Natalie pacing anxiously in the waiting area. When she saw him, she paused, her eyes apologetic. "Henry, I'm sorry," she said. "I shouldn't have left her alone. I'm just going to get some of Nathan's stuff." Henry shook his head. "It's not your fault, Natalie. What did the doctor say?" "They said she's going to be fine. They're pumping her stomach and they're going to psychologically evaluate her afterward." Henry nodded and sat down in a nearby chair. He felt exhausted and didn't know how to deal with it all. A few hours later, the doctor told them Olivia was out of danger but needed psychiatric care. Henry was allowed to visit her briefly. When he walked into the hospital room, Henry barely recognized the woman lying on the bed. Olivia looks pale and fragile, a far cry from the vibrant wife he remembers. "Henry," she said weakly, "I'm sorry." Henry sat on the edge of the bed and gently took her hand in his. "Why, Olivia? Why did you do it?" Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "I can't face the reality of losing everything. Losing you. Losing the kids." Henry felt a pang of heartache. "But that's not the answer. Think of the children, Olivia. They need you." Olivia nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. I know. I just, I don't know what to do anymore. Henry took a deep breath. We'll figure it out. You need to get therapy, Olivia, for your own sake and for the sake of the children. Over the next few weeks, Olivia underwent psychotherapy at the hospital. Henry made sure that the children were able to visit her on a regular basis, although these visits were always fraught with tension and awkwardness. In the meantime, the divorce proceedings have officially begun. At Amy's suggestion, Henry agrees to a relatively relaxed visitation schedule that allows Olivia to maintain contact with the children after she completes her treatment. It'll look good to the judge, Amy explains, showing that you're willing to look out for the kids instead of using Olivia's situation to punish her. Henry agrees, though still internally conflicted. He knew that no matter what Olivia did, she was still the mother of his children. While Olivia was hospitalized, Nathan was sentenced by the court to 10 years in prison for aggravated assault and attempted murder. The news gives Henry a strange sense of satisfaction, even though he knows it doesn't make up for past hurts. Over time, Henry begins to reconstruct his life. He devoted himself to work and caring for his children, and slowly, he felt himself healing. A few months later, Henry decided to take the kids on a Mediterranean vacation. During his journey, he meets a Canadian woman named Nikki, who is also a divorced single mom. The two talk to each other and realize they had a lot in common. You know, Nikki said to Henry one night, I never thought I could be happy after all I've been through. But now, I feel like there's hope for life again. Henry looked at her and felt something awaken in his heart. Me too, he said softly. Back home, Henry and Nikki keep in touch. They began chatting regularly online, sharing their lives and experiences. Although Henry is unsure how the relationship will work out, he feels he is moving forward slowly and cautiously. Meanwhile, Olivia gradually recovers under the care of George and Rhonda. She started writing for a few music blogs in an effort to rebuild her life. Although there is still tension between her and Henry, they learn how to live in peace for the sake of their children. One day, when Henry picks up the kids to go to Olivia's house for the weekend, he notices that she looks calmer and stronger than ever. Thank you, Henry, she said, for not taking the children away from me completely. I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm really grateful. Henry nodded. We're all looking out for the kids, Olivia. That's what's important. Watching the children run toward Olivia, Henry felt a mixture of emotions. Though the hurt of the past would never fully go away, he began to believe that maybe they could all learn from this difficult experience and grow stronger. As Henry drove away, he glanced at Olivia and the kids in the rearview mirror before turning his attention to the road ahead. The future is still full of uncertainty, but he knows that whatever happens, he has the courage and strength to face it. Over time, Henry and Nikki's relationship grows deeper. Their online communication increased from twice a week to almost daily contact. Henry finds himself looking forward to conversations with Nikki more and more. Her sense of humor and positive outlook on life bringing him a sense of ease and joy that he hasn't seen in a long time. One night, after finishing a video call with Nikki, Sophie crept into Henry's study. Daddy, she spoke hesitantly, who was that lady you were talking to? Henry turned and smiled at his daughter. Her name is Nikki. She's a friend I met on vacation. Sophie nodded thoughtfully. Is she your girlfriend? Henry froze for a moment, unsure of how to respond. He and Nikki are definitely getting closer, but they haven't officially defined their relationship. We're just good friends, honey, he concluded. Sophie didn't seem entirely convinced, but she didn't press the issue further. Instead, she asked, Does Mommy know? Henry felt a pang of unease. He hadn't considered telling Olivia about it. Not yet, he replied honestly, but if anything important happens, I'll let you all know. Sophie nodded and gave Henry a hug before leaving. This conversation makes Henry realize that he needs to be more careful with his relationship with Nikki, especially considering the impact it may have on the kids and Olivia. A couple weeks later, Nikki made a suggestion. Hey, I was thinking maybe I could bring the kids to visit you guys? Or maybe you guys come to my place. I have a 2-story log house north of Kamloops that was built in the late 1800s. What do you think? Henry felt both excited and nervous. Seeing each other would undoubtedly take their relationship further, but he was also concerned about the effect it might have on the children. After much deliberation, he decided to first discuss the issue with the children. Sophie, Aaron, he spoke up one weekend at breakfast time. Do you remember my friend Nikki that I told you about? She invited us to her house for a vacation. What do you think? Aaron looks excited. Awesome. Where is her house? In British Columbia, Canada, Henry replied. She has a beautiful log house. Sophie, however, looked a little hesitant. What about Mom? Will she be sad? Henry sighed. I understand your concern, Sophie, but you have to understand. Mom and I are no longer a couple. We all have the right to move on with our lives. Sophie nodded, though still looked a little uneasy. Henry decides to give the kids some more time to think about it, while he needs to figure out how to tell Olivia about it. The opportunity came quickly. The next time the kids go to Olivia's house for the weekend, Henry decides to talk to her. Olivia, he called to her from the porch, I have something to tell you. Olivia turned to look at him with a questioning expression on her face. Henry took a deep breath. I met someone while on vacation in the Mediterranean. Her name is Nikki, and she's a Canadian. We've stayed in touch and now we're developing a relationship. Olivia's expression froze instantly. She was silent for a few moments, then said softly, I see. Do the kids know? Henry nodded. Yes, I've talked to them. Nikki invited us to her house for a vacation, but I haven't made up my mind yet. I wanted to let you know first. A flash of pain flashed in Olivia's eyes, but she quickly hid it. Thanks for telling me, Henry. I want you to be happy. Despite Olivia's efforts to appear calm, Henry could sense her inner struggle. He couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt, even though reason told him he had nothing to feel guilty about. Just as Henry was about to leave, Olivia suddenly said, Henry, I'm really sorry. For all of it. I know it's probably too late to apologize, but I want you to know that I really regret hurting you and the kids. Henry turned to look at her and saw the genuine remorse in her eyes. He nodded softly. I know, Olivia. We're all trying to move on. For the kids. Later that night, Henry sent Nikki a message agreeing to her invitation. He knew this could be a major turning point, not only for himself, but for his entire family. However, just as they are planning the trip, an unexpected phone call interrupts everything. It's George calling. Henry, George's voice sounded tense. Something's wrong. They put Olivia in a mental institution. Henry felt a moment of shock. What's going on? George explained that Sophie had sent Olivia a picture of them having dinner with Nikki, and Olivia had seen it and had had an emotional breakdown and tried to self-harm. Luckily, they caught and stopped her in time, but the doctors thought she would need long-term psychiatric treatment. Henry hung up the phone and felt a wave of deep exhaustion and sadness. He realizes that despite his efforts to rebuild his life, the shadow of the past still hangs over them all. He had to reconsider his plans to go to Canada, at least in the short term. That night, he sat down and had a long talk with the children, explaining Olivia's situation and discussing their feelings about the future. Despite the difficult situation, Henry took comfort in the fact that they were able to communicate their thoughts and feelings openly. Finally, Henry sent Nikki a message explaining the current situation. He was grateful to find that Nikki was fully understanding and supportive of this. Family comes first, she wrote in her reply, and our get-togethers can wait. Right now, taking care of yourself and the kids is what's important. Henry lay in bed, thinking back over everything that had happened in the meantime. He realizes that life will never be as simple as he thought it would be. But he also understands that as long as he continues to stay strong and think of his children, he will get through this tough time. Tomorrow, he'll visit Olivia in the hospital, not as a husband, but as a father to his children and as a man who wants all to be healed. It's a long way to go, but Henry knows that if they work together, one day they'll both find inner peace. Over the next few months, Henry visited Olivia weekly with the kids and watched her slowly recover from her treatments. Despite the slow progress, Olivia is definitely becoming more stable and more in control of her emotions. Meanwhile, Henry and Nikki continue to keep in touch, but they both agree to keep their relationship on a friendship level for now. Nikki understands Henry's need for time to deal with family matters, and her support and patience is deeply gratifying to Henry. Finally, 6 months after Olivia was admitted to the hospital, her doctor announced that she was ready to be discharged. Henry went with the kids to pick her up, and the atmosphere was both tense and full of anticipation. "Thank you for coming to get me," Olivia said softly, tears glistening in her eyes. "I know I've caused you a lot of trouble." Henry smiled gently. "We're family, Olivia. Although the relationship has changed, we still care about you." Sophie went up to her mother and hugged her, followed by Aaron. The image sends a wave of warmth through Henry, even though he knows their family will never be the same again. Over time, they slowly found new ways to get along. Olivia moved back into her parents' house, but comes to visit the kids often. She continued to write for music blogs and even began teaching music classes at a local community college. Henry finally decides to accept Nikki's invitation to take the kids on a vacation to Canada. This trip became a turning point. The kids fell in love with Nikki, and her kids and Henry felt really ready to start a new life. When they get home, Henry sits down and has a long talk with Olivia. "I think you should know," he said gently, "that Nikki and I have decided to get serious about our relationship." Olivia nodded, a flash of pain on her face, but it was quickly replaced by understanding. "I understand, Henry. I really want you to be happy. You deserve happiness." Henry felt a wave of relief. "Thank you, Olivia. I hope you find your own happiness too." A year later, Henry and Nikki decided to get married. The wedding was small, with only the closest family and friends in attendance. To Henry's surprise, Olivia offers to help watch all the kids so the newlyweds can spend their honeymoon in peace. "Are you sure?" Henry asked, a little uncertain. Olivia smiles and nods. "I'm sure. It's the smallest thing I can do for you. Go ahead and enjoy your time." Watching Olivia and the kids wave goodbye, Henry felt a deep sense of gratitude. Despite all the pain and betrayal they experienced, in the end, they found a way to reconcile. A few years later, at Sophie's college graduation, the entire extended family gathered to celebrate. Henry and Nikki, Olivia and her new partner, and all the kids, all smiling for a family photo. Looking at this photo, Henry realizes that the path of life is never straight. It's full of twists and turns, betrayal and heartache, but also forgiveness, growth, and new beginnings. He remembered what the bartender had told him all those years ago in that music bar. "Trust me, things will always work out." Now, standing here, looking at their unique, reorganized family, Henry knew the old bartender was right. Despite the twists and turns of the road, they eventually find their own happiness. That night, as Henry lay in bed reflecting on it all, he felt a deep sense of peace. He knew that whatever else awaited them in the future, they were capable of facing it, overcoming it, and growing. Because ultimately, that's what life is really about. Not avoiding hurt, but learning how to heal from it and becoming a better person in the process. As Henry slowly fell asleep, a small smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Tomorrow is a new day, full of endless possibilities. And he, for one, was ready for anything that might happen. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.